She creates noise. She creates noise. She's moving through the world with a powerful voice. She creates noise. She creates. She creates noise. She creates noise.
Hi, you're listening to Sarah Nagurney, and welcome to She Creates Noise, a new podcast spotlighting women who power the music industry, coming to you from New York City. Now, if you don't know me yet, here's a little background. I'm a songwriter, producer, manager, educator, and mentor. I've written platinum-selling songs, had tracks on Grammy-nominated records, and released music on both major and independent labels. I've been a jazz singer, a jingle singer, toured with big bands, and became a pop artist, and I've performed at festivals across the US, Europe, and Asia. These days, I focus on writing with and developing young talent. In the coming weeks, I'll be pulling back the curtain on the music industry's female changemakers. Some are close friends, others I'm just getting to know, but all have reshaped the business in profound ways. My goal here is to help listeners better understand how the music business really works, and just how instrumental women behind the scenes have been. You'll hear from both sides of the desk: artists, producers, managers, label executives, lawyers, women making things happen, often without the spotlight on them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's dive in.
She creates noise.
Today's guest is Rachael Yamagata. Rachael Yamagata first emerged in the early 2000s with her self-titled EP and her critically acclaimed debut album, Happenstance, which was 2004. It introduced her smoky, aching vocals and intimate songwriting. Part of the influential wave of singer-songwriters who defined the era, she became a staple of the Hotel Café scene and collaborated with Ryan Adams, Bright Eyes, Jason Mraz, and Ray LaMontagne, while also guesting on the Grammy-winning True Love by Toots and the Maytals. Her follow-up albums, Elephants, Teeth Sinking into Heart, 2008, Chesapeake, 2011, and Tightrope Walker, 2016, deepened her reputation as a fiercely independent voice, unafraid to explore the darker edges of love, loss, and resilience. Her songs reached wide audiences through placements in Grey's Anatomy, The O.C., One Tree Hill, and films including In Her Shoes and Prime. Now based in New York's Hudson Valley, Yamagata returns with Starlit Alchemy, her first album released in 9 years. It's released October 3rd, 2025 via Julian Records, and it marks a journey through grief, reinvention, and self-reliance. Written before and during 2020, and the recording largely done in her Catskills home studio with longtime collaborators. The album reflects her life as a fully independent artist, self-managed for over a decade, funding her work through touring and forging her own path. Cinematic and soul-stirring, Starlit Alchemy unfolds as a continuous arc, equal parts storm, salve, grief, and release. Songs like Backwards and Birds wrestle with transformation and memory, while Carnival erupts as a liberating anthem of defiance. The ethereal Galaxy and the vulnerable Somebody Like Me reveal Yamagata's gift for balancing fragility with unflinching honesty. For Yamagata, the album is more than a collection of songs. It's a guide through uncertainty and a reminder of the strength found in surrender. As she puts it, these songs are not necessarily an easy experience, but if they help move something through you, pain, grief, whatever you cannot articulate, that's the point. That's what music can do. Please welcome Rachael Yamagata.
She creates noise.
Rachael, so nice to have you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. And congrats on the new record. Now, you've described your new album as a deep dive and that it reflects forensic for trauma, and I quote here, and beauty and the bittersweetness of the in-tandem nature of both. Very heady stuff. And yet the record has a lightness about it. Please tell us about the experience of making the record and how it feels to finally be releasing Starlit Alchemy.
Well, how much time do you have? The making of it was basically alchemy itself, because it was not a 9-year process, but it was a lengthy journey to actually record it and then set it up to have it released. So I feel like I'm at the end of a marathon. I'm a little spacey, and my muscles are going on, the zone and pushing through, and I can see the finish line. And so I'm in that weird state of just super excitement, and you can't even explain it. But, originally I was supposed to record this in 2020. I had taken the year not with Penny tours. The 2019, I think I did States, Europe, and Asia. Toured, that's sort of my sequence when I tour a record, hitting other places. And 2020 was gather up the songs and record the record, and of course everything changed.
Right.
And so the next 2 years, it was really about adjusting to this new way of living and taking care of my family and friends, and going through the experience that we all did, and asking all the questions and changing.
It was a very crazy time. I mean, nothing was the same before or after. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, it all did have a shift for me. With this record, I had a handful of songs, and because that time was such a shift and so surreal, it started changing my approach to even the songs. Some of them I kept. I wrote a few new ones. I started recording demos as like one song into the next, and it sort of mirrored this time of what is going on. And I almost thought they would become like a living movie soundtrack or EP or something. I'd write these little interludes that would connect them. And when it came time to 2022, something like that, when it was like, all right, we've got to make this record, I had to go on the road again because I'd spent all the money that I had saved to make the record. I lived off it for those 2 years. So I did another round of Asia and the US, and I lose money in the US, but I make money in Asia and then we'll fund the US.
So this was just sort of late COVID kind of era.
This was 2022, 2023. I don't think I hit the stage again until maybe early 2023 because so many shows were canceled, but the backup of venues and shows that had to be rescheduled, it wasn't easy to just book a tour. And so that cycle was another year and a half, something like that. And I think in 2024 was when I really started recording this album. And I actually thought it was going to come out in 2024, had tours set up for the release, everything in the fall of 2024. And then the partnership with the label that I thought was going to work with it fell through, and that started a new strategy of release, and that brings us to 20.
She creates noise.
Okay, I was wondering the story behind the timeline. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so it was a lot more to do with like just logistics and life, and then there were random issues. I have a hearing issue. I have a TMJ issue that reared its head right in the middle of recording.
Wow.
Several people pass away, not just from 2020 related things, but so there was a lot of life in there too. And yeah, so it was alchemy.
Yeah, so it makes this record even more poignant because of all the experiences that you had during that time.
It does. It is a journey. It really is like a continual wave, and it's bookended by these moments of thinking you have it all together, and you're transforming, and you're so excited, and then you pull back, and then you discover maybe you have a cosmic question, and then you pay tribute to somebody who's so meaningful in your life, and then you have your own doubts again, and then you get excited again, and then you're like sort of calling to the universe to say, continue to guide us, and because the transformation isn't complete.
Yeah, and you were also describing that even though that you had these stops and starts, that you felt that this body of work is best listened to kind of all at once to be heard in full.
It really is, which is it's a high ask. from a listener, especially these days. But it really is the type of thing that you want to take a walk with. And because the songs tend to blend into one another, it will be more gratifying to take your own moment with it. I keep saying it's not the type you want to put on at a dinner party. You probably don't want to go to the gym with it. It's really something that it's a collaboration with the listener, and for something that I think would be more profound and meaningful, allow yourself just an experience and a drive, something like that. It's that kind of record.
That makes sense. I had the first listen, I have to admit, I was cooking, but I liked doing that. It was very therapeutic. Yeah, it was beautiful. And especially now, as we're so singles market oriented, and even as a songwriter, I work with a lot of young artists. They never think about albums. They only think about singles. They think about EPs. It's definitely hearkening back to a different time.
Yeah, I almost called it the archivist for that reason. Not only because it's sort of an archive of a particular time for me, but I wonder if it's like, is it an art form, the album art form, will it last? And is this the last historical bit for me to put something out there in this form and be right on the cusp of, like, I don't know. It's just,
She creates noise.
There are artists that do put out, Beyonce, I know there are others that put out full albums all at once. And I think it's kind of an interesting way to look at it would be that maybe this is going back to the beginning. People might want to do this again.
I hope so. There are these trends that you hear about, the younger generation going back for CDs and vinyl and wanting something physical that's untouchable, it's a complete thing. So I hope that will be something that continues.
I do too, and I think it is interesting because I've heard, and a lot of young people are interested in the 2000s, the Y2K artists, TV shows, etc., that there must be something that they're nostalgic for. So in a way, would you say comparing this release to earlier releases of yours would be, or how would you compare it, I should say?
Yeah, the early releases just thematically were a lot about love, relationships, and heartbreak, and all of the things that you're consumed with at least back in my younger years, when we had the luxury of those, were the biggest issues, were the heartache of a relationship. So that, a lot of love gone wrong songs, that was like what these songs were about. And now I think Tightrope Walker, which is the release just before this record, started approaching a more universal perspective of collective thoughts about things, and that had a lot to do with like the messages of resilience and forgiveness and things. So I think just as I've gotten older, and what breaks my heart, the threshold is so different now. It's much more about a loved one passing away, or motivations of people in the world, and just noticing that it's sort of a human experience, and the hopefulness is different. The hopefulness isn't based on a love relationship. It's on a humanity hope, and also this idea of like a consciousness that's changing. Perhaps we're not alone in the ways that we think we are. Perhaps we can become more empowered in a way that we haven't considered. So I've changed the releases of that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was almost thinking that you might have thought more singles like back in the day, or were you also as album oriented, do you think, back then?
Well, I think in songs, I don't ever even think in like, even this, when I wasn't setting out to make like a concept record, or even like, I didn't have the vision at the start. It sort of developed as I went through, and I just kept linking things. They just felt right linked together. So it became that. Early in the day, I think, especially on the major label side, they always, they're focused on the singles. And I was so new, it wasn't like if the songs were there that I wanted to be on, I wasn't focused in any particular way of it being a single. My thing is I love a long song. I have a lot to learn on songwriting. I feel like I have a lot that will benefit me in terms of how to be concise, even in speaking. I meander on, but that's just like I take the journey. So.
It's very your explanations are super interesting and very philosophical. And so your music's very deep, and that makes sense. I think what I'd like to do now actually is to play Birds.
Send me a sign and I'll pass it on as best as I can to the broken man who doesn't quite believe yet, but he's coming along 'cause he knows that he needs you. Oh, he needs you now. Drop me a line from an old friend and I'll know what to do. All these messages from you, it makes you think. He said, I had a dream of her last night and I never do. Oh, I miss her so, especially now when the world has gone so crazy. It's just so damn unfair to have to bear it on your own. You always made us laugh, and I'll remind him of that. The birds are flying to my window, I'll make sure he knows. Yeah, I'll make sure he knows.
That was Birds by Rachael Yamagata on her latest album, Starlit Alchemy. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear it.
She creates noise.
I wanted to ask about the birds flying into your window. I want to know what that was about, and also tell you a little story of my own that a falcon flew into my window. I have a little house out of town, and it died. I wasn't there when it happened, but I found this beautiful dead falcon outside my window with yellow talons. And it was super eerie. And I happened to have somebody there at the time, and we buried it. And I read later that it was kind of a talisman or a teller of future change, but it actually indicated like positive change.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of think that was the year I got remarried and stuff like that happened afterwards. I don't know. But but it was spooky. I mean, I felt like what happened with what kind of birds flew into your windows?
Wow. Well, all the time. I mean, I always think we get messages in birds. I always hear people, half my loved ones are like, I'm going to come back as a cardinal, or, they pick their birds out. It's crazy. And I have these birds that would fly into the window. And I think the first one that sort of knocked was at a time where I was thinking of, I've had two now three. I just had an aunt pass away, but my aunts have been very important in my life. And I've had two that have passed that were sisters of my mom. And when my aunt Tina passed, she has a son, and he was probably in his early 20s when she died. And I wrote the song sort of for him, lightly, for him, because I just felt felt what it must have been like for somebody so young to be experiencing such a huge loss, and the insanity of the world and how lonely you can feel within that context. And then that extra layer of, I can't even tell my mom, and it's this idea of, do our loved ones go on and do they send us signs? And I firmly believe they do. And so, my other aunts send signs all the time, and I'm a big, if you look for them, they're there. And I really just love that idea of, there's some lyric in there at the end, like, it's funny you don't know there's a window. And I just love that tie-in of, the veil is so much, it's thin, and there are little gifts that we're given, especially when we're really going through it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
Well, I know, it is actually very Carole King-ish to me, that song. It starts out, I really feel like it's got that classic quality.
Oh, I love that.
It's really beautiful. I just want to ask you a little bit about your tour plans. I know you've described it as not just a concert, but more of an immersive experience. Are you bringing a number of instruments with you?
We're going to do it as a 4-piece, but it's with Michael Chavez, who is my longtime collaborator in many respects. He's sort of like a Daniel Lanois. He just plays these soundscapes of beauty on guitar, but he also, in the past, has been a one-man band for me. He plays drums, bass, he's a producer, he's won a Juno, I think, for one an album. I mean, he's just multifaceted and very talented. And then I've got 2 string players who I just love, and I've never played with before, other than very briefly, one a violinist and Caroline Ryan and Dolores the Maestro, who is going to play cello. And they're just both so accomplished in their own right. And so we've got rehearsals starting in 3 days, I think. And we've picked rooms as much as we could. We have venues that are listening rooms. They're seated. There's a grand piano. Some are one is a cemetery at Masonic Lodge in LA. One is a few are these beautiful churches. Just something to make it function as if you are having that intimate listening experience by yourself, not like some noisy bar that's clanking glasses all over.
New York, I know it's a church, and that's sponsored by Baby's All Right. Is that right?
I can't remember. I've never played there before.
I got tickets, but I have to look. I have to remind myself where it is. But yeah, it's definitely. I'm in New York City.
She creates noise.
So interesting. So were some of the string players, do they play on your record?
They didn't. I didn't know them at the time. But one of them I met at an artist retreat in Tecate, Mexico a few months ago. And then one is a friend of mine, Rita Ryan, who had a radio show. I was backstage at a Joan Osborne concert and met her and was going to be on her show. And she had a daughter, and I looked at her and was just like, I don't know if I've met you. And we just started talking. And I was like, what do you do? And she said, I play violin. Like, okay. And I brought her over, and she's just the most intuitive, wondrous player.
That's great.
Never been on tour.
Just lucky. I wish I had more time to talk more about your record. I want to kind of move into some more experiences, because we talk a lot in this podcast about being a woman in the music industry. So we will be angling toward that shortly. But I want to talk a little bit about your early days. You first broke through in the early 2000s with Happenstance. What do you remember most about those years and the creative community you were part of, especially as we were talking about younger audiences kind of rediscovering your music and the music of that period?
Well, it was a very busy time. I used to look at my calendar, and it was like flying 5 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week. It was wonderful. It got me on the map, and I started touring worldwide and did all of the fun things that I look back on. I'm like, I can't believe I, played Madison Square Garden, got on, it's like some of the things that happened were just surreal, and, people I got to play with. And the early days, there's a place in LA called the Hotel Café, which is a beautiful venue. And I spent a lot of time out there just for the business side of things, showcases and label stuff and whatnot. But there were a slew of us that sort of all were starting together. And that was so fun. Carrie Brothers and Sarah Bareilles and Ingrid Michaelson and Nico and Josh Whedon. And there was
Ryan Adams, Bright Eyes. I'm seeing other names.
Sure. Well, those I met later.
Okay.
Yeah. There was this core of we all sort of just started, and we're going on these collaborative tours. And when I look back early on, that's sort of what I remember. It was just all of us figuring it out and having a van or a bus and blossoming into all these different careers and trajectories.
So you guys were all doing the Hotel Café time.
Yeah, we would play these shows in Hotel Café. We did a couple of Hotel Café tours, and it's just been musicians and artists from that time still just are such an instrumental part of my history. And then as the years went on, I was very lucky to meet Sonic Burst, and I did with Brian Adams. I went on tour with him at one point. The spectrum of artists really. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I work with Tweets and Maple.
Such an interesting combination of people you've worked with. And also your music's been featured in shows like Grey's Anatomy and the OCs and films like In Her Shoes and Prime. That must be so gratifying, just that so many of those shows are actually still kind of having a rebirth and people are still watching them. And
I always love when this song fits the theme and it just the two of them together creates something different, and it's an honor, actually. I love it. There's an indie film called Bella, which was my favorite placement, I think. And I was so engrossed in this film, and I forgot I was watching it because somebody said I had a song in it. And the song is in the last scene, and I was tearing up because of the end of this movie. And when the music started, I was bawling because it was the most perfect combination. I had forgotten that it was in it, and then it was like rediscovering this just whole new thing that was born with it. And so moments like that, it's lovely. So good.
That's how music just lives on forever, really.
Yeah.
That's so great that's happened for you. Now, you've been independently managing yourself for a while. Is that great, or is that hard? Or
well, I do have help. I've had some management team for the past year and a half, which I think I would not have made it without them. I have some. There are people peppered around that have certainly helped me for years. As a Chandler Coyle, I would be lost without him, especially on anything tech related. I would never be able to do it, but in a million other things. But it is so hard, I'll have to say. It is. The reason I did it back in 2011 was because every year I was in about $53,000 in course commissions. And I don't think people realize that there's, at least the standard was about 40 to 45% is taken off. The gross guarantee of whatever you're doing, advances, like tour budgets, whatever it is, without expenses considered, from the get-go. So often, I think artists they're working 24/7, and then they're like, why am I in debt? I just work 24/7. And so I had to stop that model in order to keep making records and touring. And that was the reason I sort of said to everybody, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I had to learn all these different aspects of the business. I took a marketing class through Berkeley, like an online marketing class, and I studied Dave Ramsey to learn about money and debt, and I'm very rudimentary on it. So I had an accountant show me the sum function once on an Excel spreadsheet, and that changed my world. I was like, oh, you can I didn't know it would add. But so I've been learning it as I go, and I read all these business books, and I took it over so that I could still do it. And then by learning some of that and making every mistake on, just all of it, I found my footing. What is really gratifying is that I feel like I have a lot more compassion for managers, and also understand what not to do and how all of these pieces intersect in a way that I think I could give good insight on sort of what an artist needs to function, and understand a more business management side and what they need to function. That's a great perspective to have. But I have to figure out how to pivot, they would say, because it's not sustainable for me. I'm doing way too much of the business side. I mean, I have to take my weekends and make myself sit down at a piano and do the music because the business side list it never ends.
Yeah.
But the model's backwards. You can't make a living on just the level where I am. It needs to bump significantly. I just spent $78,000 on a record that's going to go out for free, and that's not including any deals with marketing or anything.
Right.
And I had to tour to make that money. I had to tour twice to make that. So it's not sustainable as a business.
Well, streaming is just not working out for artists. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's impossible. And we're conditioned now to think music is just free.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart because, the tagline becomes, why did it take 9 years to make a record? And it's because I had 7 other jobs and I had to raise the money to actually make it. I compare it to buying a house every few years, but you give it away and you never get to live in it. And it's like asking somebody, why didn't you buy another house?
I'm so glad we're talking about this because I wasn't sure. I didn't know what those 9 years were about, but this makes perfect sense. It's impossible to make a living doing this unless you're really one of the top 20 artists in the world.
Yeah. And I mean, you can have pockets. You get a sync over here, you do a special show over here. And but it is, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to be in for that battle of it.
Right. And I should repeat, it's almost impossible, but it's really difficult. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. And it's the tragedy of it is that the perception tragedy is that nobody sees that. Your fans are buying a high price ticket thinking that I'm supporting you. I bought a t-shirt and it's so wonderful, but I always want to, if I had time, just lay out a budget of these different segments and just show the popular, the realities of it, or at least give a little I started a women's dinner artist group just to sort of be able to churn ideas and think tank and commiserate in some ways, just to be like, this is happening, because I do wonder if artists will reach a point where they're going to have to become more entrepreneurial minded, and rather than stew in anger about it for years of where did everything go.
Well, they're teaching it at Clive, I can tell you.
Oh, good.
I mean, they're definitely teaching. I mean, I work with a lot of young artists. They're definitely showing them how to do a lot of it themselves. I mean, it's still a learning curve. I mean, I've managed some young artists who, in one particular case, worked really hard and got really far, under my support. But it's still hard to make money because you're not making from Spotify. And, you used to be able to make more money from YouTube, and now that's become hard. And then I was going to also ask you, what's your social media situation? How do you handle that? Is there someone helping you, or it's just... It's
a full-time job. I have 6 Zooms that I'm doing today, and in between I am making lyric videos because the album's done in a week, and doing that kind of thing. It has become full-time, and I do have a team. They're Peanut Butter Friends. It's the name of their company. They're great. They're young and driven, and they're doing multi-posting, but the video stuff and it is mostly me. So I'm learning how to edit and learning it. I am not a tech person at all. So
are you using your phone when you make the videos?
I'm using my phone. Anything you see, or if you go to my Instagram page and look at videos, or even YouTube and see music videos, it's because I've made them. And it's no joke. I've spent 30 hours on a 4-minute clip. But when I have these, meetings, these team meetings, it really does become apparent that social media is the huge access point to exposure. When I started, it was ranking on iTunes, or, a particular review, or there's a Friday something. And now it's so different. The masses of all of it. And the only reason I can do social media right now is because I enjoy the creative. I like making a visual with a song, and I like finding a moment of a clip. So it feels like a catalog of mini creations. Everything else about it drives me insane.
I haven't done the editing yet. That doesn't sound fun. I haven't even tried to think about it.
I have a weird brain. I like it, but it's just weird. But I don't like this culture of looking at our phones and being on our phones and looking at likes. And I especially feel for somebody who isn't of a generation that knew what it was like before. And I have to remind myself to get off of this thing. I made a joke the other day with someone. I was on my phone looking at a video, trying to do something the other night, and I looked down because I felt something on my foot, and a raccoon was licking my foot. And I'm like, I don't even have the awareness that a raccoon is crawled up on the porch. He's licking my foot. And it was crazy. Things like that. It was like,
that's scary. They can be nasty.
I got so many animals on this property. It's crazy. Yeah, there's a different thing over here.
I've seen them slither around my house, and they scare the heck out of me.
I'm pretty sure there's 5 living under my porch right now. It's insane. Yeah.
Licking, that's pretty friendly. You must have a good relationship with that raccoon.
We're okay. We have an understanding. Yeah.
She creates noise.
Well, I think the social media thing, hats off, because it's just for my podcast. It's really quite a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And now my husband's like, "Would you get off your phone?" It's like, I have to do this, you know. It's a lot.
It's tricky. Yeah, it's very tricky.
Now, I know you just mentioned your women's group. I wanted to kind of talk to you about the challenges as a woman artist. You know, you've had to navigate this industry for over 2 decades. What would you say that you felt were some particular challenges, or did you just ignore them and push through and you didn't really think about?
It's hard to say whether it was women, male, influenced or not. For me back in the day, it felt very like, because I was younger and in this major label system, it was like there was a lot of just do your art, focus on the art. She could be this X, Y, and Z. And I was so busy like doing that I didn't have a strong understanding of sort of how do I want to be presented in this forum. It was a learn as I go experience for many years. Now that I see sort of peers getting all the label jobs and whatnot, and the algorithm conversations, and she could be this, she could be that instruction. Now is when I notice it more, and it doesn't affect me in any way, because I'm of an age where I'm like, I'll say something you'd have to bleep out, whatever. It's like, and women are, there's no stopping them. We're on, it's just a powerful time.
Yes, it is, of course.
For women. There's masculine and feminine in all of us. It's the balance that needs to be reset. And how it plays out in the music industry is there is this sort of white guy club veteran something that has been in control of, a lot of the positions in the industry. And no discredit to any artist who's like really embodying their body as a canvas. But there are days where I look online, I'm like, God, there's so many artists in bathing suits, basically. And it does, I am wondering, like, where are we as a collective that is the showmanship of the visual that we need? And there, especially now there's a fabrication of artistry that's happening that who knows how AI will intersect this. And because it may be,
it's easier to reproduce in a way that AI can reproduce those bikini-clad artists in a way,
Well, yeah, and there's a writing synthetic. You just take what you want, you make the right ingredient list, and then you give it to something, and then it shoots out what you need, and then you mirror what you need, and that is that's going to be interesting. I'm going to go hard the other direction. And that's why when I talk about an experience, a performance, or even an album that forces you to have your own, time with it for a good 45, 50 minutes, I'm going the other direction.
To make it a serious experience.
Yeah. I mean, because I love somebody who has the perspective to look at an artist and guide and influence or produce in a way, have that role, which is different for everybody. Artist development, if you want, whatever you want to call it. Like those roles, I think can be wonderful. It can be a collaboration. It can be really important. The business corporation of sort of this grow mentality of we're going to make the next big thing, that's no different than a tech giant to me. That I think I don't think that will last. One good thing about social media is that, artists are getting their own followings, however they're being made on their own.
So many more independent artists, basically.
Yeah. What scares me about that would be the label side that finds the huge following artist that's never played a show in their life and gives them a couple $1 million and says, go on tour. It's crazy.
Happens a lot, yeah. Little pivot here. I just was wondering if you could talk about your biggest influence, like if it's a person, something that somebody really influenced you.
I would have to say my mother, my brothers, my father. I grew up with 4 parents, really. My parents divorced when I was 2. My stepmother was passed away. But there, something about this really strong family, not like an easy family, but a family that thought I could just do anything in certain respects. Like there was never, it wasn't that way initially with music. It was like, have a backup plan, go to college. There was all of that with music succeed. And that was pretty typical. But there's such a good heartbeat of family that honestly, if I didn't have that, that would be tragic. Like they've been a huge influence. Yeah, creatively, it's this idea of going in the trenches and knowing that, learning that failures are part of the beauty of it all. That's sort of made me have the freedom to fall on my face continually.
It's great. It's beautiful that you just keep creating and making these wonderful records.
Thank you.
And it's so lovely to have you. Just as a fun sort of wrap-up question, if you could collaborate with anyone, living or not, who would that be?
This is tricky. I will say Patrick Watson at this point because I think he has a new record, I believe, that just came out. Everything I see and hear from him just has such, it's like so many layers of just brilliant musicianship and tenderness and ethereal, fascinating choices. I don't know enough, but I know as much to be like a theater college.
That's great. Well, again, Rachel, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and congratulations on your record. And that's coming out Friday?
Yes, it's Friday.
That's so exciting. Well, everyone, make sure you go and listen to it and follow her tour, and we'll be watching and applauding. And I'm going to show up to the show in New York.
Amazing. It's so nice to meet you in person. Thank you so much.
She creates noise.
I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Heard City, the premier audio post-production company servicing the advertising, motion picture, and television industries right here in NYC. I'd also like to thank Ann Tello, aka XO Ann, for singing the She Creates Noise theme that I wrote. Thanks for listening to She Creates Noise. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share. I want to thank the team here, Blair Reinley, Yelena Stavanovich, Emily Wilson, and the Master of Engineering and Grammy-winning Cooper Anderson. We'll see you next time.
She creates noise. She creates noise. She creates noise. We hear her voice. She creates noise.